Imagine working hard all your life, saving every penny you can, only to realize that no matter how much you put away, it never feels like enough. Prices rise, debts pile up, and governments always seem to find a way to take more from your pocket. It feels unfair, doesn't it? Well, it's not an accident. The truth is, governments have always had clever financial tricks that quietly keep ordinary people struggling, while the system itself stays firmly in their control. Let's rewind a little. In the early days of civilization, money was simple. People bartered goods, grain for cloth, cattle for tools. But as societies grew, rulers discovered something powerful. If they controlled the currency, they could control the people. In ancient Rome, emperors started mixing cheap metals into silver coins. On the surface, the coins looked the same, but their real value was less. This trick, called debasement, let rulers stretch their wealth while ordinary citizens unknowingly got poorer. The government created more money out of thin air, but each coin bought less at the marketplace. Sound familiar? It should, because today's inflation works the same way. Fast forward centuries later, and governments had refined their strategies. When paper money replaced metal coins, the game changed forever. Now rulers could print as much currency as they wanted, without even needing gold or silver to back it. In the United States, this became official in 1971, when the dollar was taken off the gold standard. From that point, dollars weren't tied to gold anymore. They were tied only to trust. Governments could spend endlessly, and whenever they ran short, they simply created more money. For politicians, it was a dream come true. For ordinary people, it meant one thing: the value of their savings would steadily erode year after year. Inflation is the quietest trick of all. Imagine you saved $10,000 in the bank 20 years ago. Back then, that money could buy a car. Today, the same $10,000 barely covers a used car with too many miles. The number in your bank account hasn't changed, but what it can buy has shrunk dramatically. Governments know this. In fact, they rely on it. Inflation makes debts easier to pay off because the money owed is worth less over time. And since governments are usually the biggest borrowers in the world, inflation works in their favor. Who pays the price? Ordinary families whose wages can't keep up with rising costs. But inflation is only one tool. Taxes are another. Most people think taxes are just a way to fund schools, hospitals, and roads. And while that's true, governments have always used taxes strategically, not just to collect money, but to control behavior and keep wealth flowing upward. Income tax, for example, sounds fair because those who earn more pay more. But the reality is, loopholes and deductions often favor the wealthy and corporations. If you're a billionaire, you can hire lawyers and accountants to make your tax bill shrink. If you're a regular worker, your paycheck is taxed before you even see it. And in countries like the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, the middle class ends up carrying the heaviest burden, while the richest individuals use the system to protect their fortunes. Then there's debt. Governments encourage citizens to take on personal debt because it keeps the economy spinning. Think about mortgages, credit cards, and student loans. These debts keep people tied to the system for decades. A young person takes out a loan for college, then a mortgage for a house, then relies on credit cards to make ends meet when prices rise. By the time they're middle-aged, they're trapped in a cycle of repayment. This is convenient for governments and banks because a population buried in debt is too busy working to question the system. Another clever trick is currency devaluation. When a country faces economic trouble, one of the first moves is often to weaken its own currency. On the surface, politicians say it helps exports, makes domestic products more competitive, and boosts growth. But for ordinary people, it's devastating. Imported goods become more expensive, savings lose value, and traveling abroad suddenly costs a fortune. Currency devaluation is essentially a hidden tax. Governments rarely admit it, but every time the value of your money drops, they benefit while you lose. History is filled with examples of these tricks. In the 20th century, during times of war or crisis, governments often froze prices, restricted withdrawals, or even confiscated gold from citizens. In the United States, in 1933, President Roosevelt ordered Americans to turn in their gold in exchange for paper dollars. People who resisted faced fines or jail time. The government then revalued gold at a higher price, instantly profiting at the expense of its own citizens. Ordinary people thought they were keeping their savings safe, but overnight, they were forced into a weaker currency while the government gained power. Today, the tricks are more subtle, but no less damaging. Central banks use low interest rates to encourage borrowing and spending. This sounds good at first. Mortgages and loans become cheaper, but it also inflates asset prices. Stocks, real estate, and investments soar, benefiting the wealthy who already own them. Meanwhile, young people trying to buy their first home find themselves priced out. The very policies designed to stimulate growth end up widening the wealth gap. Then there's quantitative easing, a fancy term for printing money electronically and pumping it into the economy. After the 2008 financial crisis, governments across the world used this strategy. They claimed it would save the economy, and in some ways it did. But where did most of that money go? Into banks and stock markets, not into the hands of ordinary families. Asset owners saw their wealth skyrocket, while wages for workers barely moved. Once again, the system favored the few at the top. Even social programs, which are supposed to help, can be designed in ways that keep people dependent. Welfare systems, for example, provide a safety net, but often come with strict rules that discourage savings saving or working too much. For some families, earning slightly more means losing benefits, leaving them stuck in a trap where moving forward feels impossible. It's a subtle way of ensuring the working class stays in place, while politicians can claim they're offering support. And let's not forget the psychological tricks. Governments know that money is not just numbers. It's about trust and perception. When they announce stimulus packages, relief checks, or new policies, they carefully frame them to sound like generosity. In reality, these programs are often funded by borrowing more money, which fuels future inflation. It's a cycle. Print money, borrow money, spend money, and let ordinary citizens pay the long-term cost through higher prices and taxes. All of these tricks build on each other. Inflation erodes saving. Taxes limit what you can keep. Debt keeps you tied down. Currency devaluation makes your money weaker. Asset inflation pushes opportunities out of reach. Each one alone might not seem devastating, but together they form a system that keeps ordinary people working harder just to stay in the same place. But here's the thing. Awareness is power. The same system that disadvantages the majority also offers opportunities for those who understand it. Learning how money works, why governments make the decisions they do, and how these choices ripple through the economy is the first step in protecting yourself. While you can't stop inflation or taxes, you can adjust your own strategies, investing in assets that grow faster than inflation, reducing unnecessary debt, or finding legal ways to lower your tax burden. The story of governments using financial tricks to keep citizens poor is not new. It stretches back thousands of years and will likely continue into the future. But history also shows that individuals who learn the rules of the game can avoid the worst of its traps. While most people remain in the dark, blaming themselves for financial struggles, a few recognize that the system is designed this way, and instead of fighting the current, they learn to swim with it. So the next time prices rise, or taxes feel overwhelming, or your paycheck doesn't stretch as far as it used to, remember, this isn't just bad luck. It's part of a long tradition of governments using money as a tool of control. Once you see the tricks, you can't unsee them. And once you understand them, you can start to take back some of the power that was quietly taken from you. Because at the end of the day, the system is not designed to make you rich. It's designed to keep you working, spending, and paying. But knowing that truth is the first step in changing how you play the game.